talk for today is called Being in the Zone, even on your day to day basis. But first, before I tell you what I mean by that, a joke. Third grade teacher notices that one of her kids, little girl, is wearing one of those gear fits on its arms. You know those watch look things that look like a watch that actually count your steps and stuff. She's got one on her wrist. And so the teacher goes up to her and says, how come you're wearing the gear fit? Are you counting your steps? And the girl goes, no, I'm doing it for mommy so she can show it to daddy every night when he gets home. Dr. Holmes, when he was asked how he planned for his talks, he said, I never plan, I never prepare for what I am going to say. I prepare for who I am going to be. And so I've several years ago started taking that to heart and stopped writing down my talks and spent a lot more time preparing who I am being when I come to you and bring you a talk on Sunday. And in so doing, I have gotten a lot of great feedback around how good my talks have gotten, how they just keep getting better and better. And I am preparing what I am going to say less and less, and who I am going to be more and more. And there's something there that's growing in my way of bringing you each Sunday these talks. The thing about it is, it never really hit me that why aren't I doing this every day? Why aren't I spending a lot more time preparing who I'm going to be instead of what I'm going to do with my day? Because that's where the power is. What we embody manifests. So it don't matter what we do, it matters who we're being, because in our being, we are manifesting. Lots of folks think what they're manifesting is through what they're doing. And sure enough, there is a way to absolutely exhaust yourself to get stuff done in this world, where at the end of the day, you know, money folks wind up with some disease. They got to be right. You know, they get what they want, and then they're sick, and they get some disease, and they wind up going to the doctor, and this and that and the other thing. And mostly it's because they spent so much time on the doing, they didn't spend enough time on the being. Now, in the past, that has certainly been true for me too. So, this week in particular, since I came up with this idea for this talk, I spent a lot of time thinking about, as I'm walking through each day, who I'm being, and a lot less time thinking about what I'm doing with my day. And then allowing out of who I'm being for that day to grow organically. And a couple of fascinating things happened this week. You know, the thing about when we want to learn something, sure enough, the opportunities show up to to push our learning, to push our ability to, to say, okay, you want to learn this? Here you go. So my wife and I hired someone to get something done for us. And the details of what they're doing for us really doesn't matter. What matters is we paid this person to do it. And then after that, they had a family emergency and not only didn't get it done, but had a meltdown around their family emergency where it looked like they were never going to get it done. And they had our money. Now, there was a time in the past where my modus operandi would have been to cream that person, to become extremely assertive, and to make it very clear what their responsibility was since they took our money. Here, when it happened, I thought to myself, okay, what an opportunity for me to check on who I am being in this moment instead of what I am doing. And so I took a deep breath, sat back, took a few moments to make sure that I was rising to letting go of the circumstance. I mean, this was the thing about it. I realized that if I'm really going to be who I want to be in this moment, I cannot be attached to the circumstance. Because as long as I'm attached to the result I'm after in this circumstance, I'm going to be pulled towards that stress, that tension around getting done what needed getting done. And so I had to let go of that completely. And to be honest, that took a little bit. But I got there. I got to the place of knowing that because of who I'm being, my life works. That it isn't up to this person for my life to work. It's only up to what I embody. That nothing out here can impact whether my life is thriving or not. That only I do that by what I embody. How do I know that? Because at the heart of our teaching, which is incredibly simple, is this principle. What we embody manifests. Period. There are no exceptions to that rule. There's nothing outside it. What we embody manifests, no matter what. So I decided I was just going to embody that what we needed to get done was already done, and that my job was to be the healing presence I know myself to be. And so once I was clear on all that, I engaged this woman by saying, okay, I hear you're having a family emergency. How can I support you around that? And I engaged her in supporting her around what was going on in her life because that's who I am when I'm in my zone. If I'm not in my zone, if I'm just being that person that, like everybody else, a human being dramatic in the world, which happens to me quite often, my wife will attest that I am not the perfect person here around all this. But the thing is what I can't do is kid myself once I've remembered. And that's the thing, you know, we got to remember that the only thing that matters is what we embody manifests. That as long as we are attached to anything out here, we are not doing the work that actually makes our lives work. So that we are not sick or exhausted at the end of the task. Instead, they come about in a healing manner. They come about in a way that makes us feel good about ourselves, and the people we interact with feel good about themselves. And so I engaged this woman on the level of ministry. I engaged this woman on the level of being a supporting, healing presence. And she rose. And I could feel that what I was doing was lifting her up. And at the end of the conversation, she was more committed to getting done for us what needed doing than she was before. Now, that's not what I was after. It's not what I was thinking about while I was working with her, while I was lifting her up through her family emergency. I wasn't thinking, I'll do this in the hopes that it will lead to her getting done what we need doing. I was just being there with her, knowing that what needed to get done would, of course, get done. And I didn't have to think about that because my life works. And so, in doing that, she went on to, she's taking care of this thing at now lightning speed, even faster than it looked like it was going to be handled. Because my life works. When I remember that and I sit in the place of trusting the process and remembering that this is about preparing for who I am being instead of what I am doing. You want to spend time every single day. I spend a lot of time. I've got to tell you, I spend quite a bit of time every day contemplating who I am being. And even in doing so, I still spend a lot of time not being that person. So it's not a perfect thing going on here. But being in the practice really does allow a life to thrive in a healthy way that doesn't leave me exhausted and ready to drop dead at the end of it, or sick, or with disease, or whatever. So that was Monday. That was how my week started. Yesterday, to lead up to what happened yesterday, I have taken on a new hobby, and my new hobby is medicinal herbs. I am delving very deeply into beginning to study, and more than study, what I have begun to do is actually through the books and the studying I'm doing, we have been or I have been ordering herbs, putting together what's called decoctions and concoctions and infusions and long infusions, and I'm actually treating my wife and I as an ex, we're ex, I'm ex, I should say I'm experimenting on my wife and I with these herbs that I've been ordering and putting them together in different blends and trying different things and recording the results of what I'm doing and seeing how all that goes. And so last night I was um, putting together what's called a decoction. And a decoction is when you take a root and you boil it. You boil it for 20 minutes. And then you add that boiled uh, brew that you just made to a tea that then sits for another 20 minutes, which is called a long infusion. Well, I'm talking to my wife while I'm doing this. I take this boiling water off the stove to pour it into the cup. I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. And before I know it, there's boiling water all over the back of my hand. Now, after screaming like a 5-year-old girl, the next thing I thought about as my wife's running into the kitchen and we'll find out what happened is I'm thinking, here's another opportunity to focus on who I am being instead of what I am doing. Clearly, I wasn't focused enough on who I was being a moment before I spilled that hot water on myself, but I needed to think about that now. And the first thing I remembered was is I am a powerful, creative, spiritual being who and I looked at the back of my hand and I said, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen here. This is scalding hot, boiling water I've just poured on the back of my hand. And I looked at my hand and I said, you are fine. This works out to my highest and best good. And then at this point, Ash is in, and I've got my hand under cold water, and then we have um, ice, and I'm putting an ice pack on it. And then we get out because I know this stuff because I've been studying this stuff, and there are things I've known throughout the years. We get out the vitamin E capsules, and I'm putting vitamin E all over my hand, and we get out the uh, what's it called? Aloe, the aloe. We have aloe, so I'm putting that all over my hand, and and I still got the ice pack on. We even took some chamomile flowers and put that on my hand, and so, but all the time I'm thinking, okay, it's not. I got to embody that my hand is fine because what we embody manifests. That's the real kicker here. You know, we do what we do, but in the end, we can have our lives manifest simply by what we embody. Embodying is not easy, particularly in the face of circumstance, like pouring hot, boiling, scalding water on your hand. It hurt. Let me be clear. As my wife said, she's never heard me scream like a 5-year-old girl before. This is what my hand looks like. All right, there's nothing. Here, to show the comparison, here's the other hand. That's what's possible. No emergency room run, no freak out of, oh my God. Just knowing the truth and then taking the steps that need to be taken. And we have such power and presence over our own bodies. It's amazing what's possible when we really take the time to remember and prepare for who we are being instead of what we are doing. Ernest Holmes had this. Dr. Holmes knew what he was talking about in terms of preparing who we are being. So I ask you and encourage you to do that as I continue to do, because we don't have to be perfect at it. That's the thing. I'm not, not by any stretch of the imagination. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be on the path, be on the trail, taking the next step. Okay, today I forgot to concentrate on, I got so caught up in what I needed to do, I forgot to focus on, who I was being. Then in that moment you've remembered, start there. Start over as many times as you need to. I mean, I must start over 25 to 50 times a day. Because it's really, the thing about life is it pulls you in. You know, um, I am what's called a lucid dreamer, which means that when I'm asleep, I can notice that what I'm doing is dreaming. But then sometimes, a lot of times, what happens in the dream is then whatever's going on is so engaging that I'm then back in the dream and forget that I'm dreaming. Then I got to remember all over again. It's the same here. It's the exact same thing here. We have to remember over and over again that this is why we are here. We are here to embody, to be, prepare who you are being. The doing will take care of itself. Thriving, true thriving, the way I've noticed it. I mean, that's just why I love these teachings. I love these teachings because they're so practically applied to life, where I get to see the results all the time. That's the beauty of these teachings. It's not just pie in the sky. Someday you'll go to heaven. Someday, if you don't do this, you'll go to hell. No. If you practice this, you will see the results show up in ways you could not even have imagined. My hand is fine. We're getting done what we needed to get done. Life moves forward. It doesn't matter how big the circumstance looks. It doesn't matter how hard or overwhelming or impossible whatever's going on may seem. You are a powerful, creative, spiritual being who, the more you remember that, the more you will thrive. Maybe not in the way you thought. Maybe it'll look different. In fact, as far as my life's been, it looks very, very different than what I had anticipated. But be that as it may, I thrive. So do you. Every single time you remember to prepare for who you are being instead of what you are doing. Thank you. I love you.
God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What I give, I receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am, and so it is.